Sonia, the call girl whose ad I found on your desk, formally identified you. She said you dropped Carlos off at her apartment yesterday around 5 p.m. If that's true, it proves that you helped Carlos escape.
Like you said, if and only if your hooker's telling the truth. Even so, do you think a big boy like Carlos needs somebody to get out of prison?
I don't know Carlos well enough to say whether he's capable of breaking prison alone. One thing's for sure, he had an accomplice. This proves that
At most, it proves how much of a moron you are, Mr. P.I.
Sonia, the call girl whose ad I found on your desk, formally identified you. She said you dropped Carlos off at her apartment yesterday around 5 p.m. If that's true, it proves that you helped Carlos escape.
Like you said, if and only if your hooker's telling the truth. Even so, do you think a big boy like Carlos needs somebody to get out of prison?
I don't know Carlos well enough to say whether he's capable of breaking prison alone. One thing's for sure, he had an accomplice. This proves that
At most, it proves how much of a moron you are, Mr. P.I.
Sonia, the call girl whose ad I found on your desk, formally identified you. She said you dropped Carlos off at her apartment yesterday around 5 p.m. If that's true, it proves that you helped Carlos escape.
Like you said, if and only if your hooker's telling the truth. Even so, do you think a big boy like Carlos needs somebody to get out of prison?
I don't know Carlos well enough to say whether he's capable of breaking prison alone. One thing's for sure, he had an accomplice.
At most, it proves how much of a moron you are, Mr. P.I.
Sonia, the call girl whose ad I found on your desk, formally identified you. She said you dropped Carlos off at her apartment yesterday around 5 p.m. If that's true, it proves that you helped Carlos escape.
Like you said, If and only if your hooker's telling the truth. Even so, do you think a big boy like Carlos needs somebody to get out of prison?
I don't know Carlos well enough to say whether he's capable of breaking prison alone. One thing's for sure, he had an accomplice. This...
I admit, he wasn't alone. What if this Sonia lied? What if she were the accomplice?
No, that doesn't make sense. Carlos was positive. He saw and identified you. Wait a minute, I just said something stupid. Sonia, the call girl whose ad I found on your desk, formally identified you. She said you dropped Carlos off at her apartment yesterday around 5 p.m. If that's true, it proves that you helped Carlos escape.
Like you said, if and only if your hooker's telling the truth. Even so, do you think a big boy like Carlos needs somebody to get out of prison?
I don't know Carlos well enough to say whether he's capable of breaking prison alone. One thing's for sure, he had an accomplice. This proves that...
I admit, he wasn't alone. What if this Sonia lied? What if she were the accomplice?
No, that doesn't make sense. Carlos was positive. The person in black and Sonia are two different people.
If you say so. Well, that's reassuring, Detective. You're definitely on the right track. Who would doubt for a second the statement of a hoe who spreads her legs for a living and a dangerous felon on the run? You got me there, I confess. Breaking psychopaths out of jail is a hobby, you know? That's how I get my kicks. That's how I try to liven up the long, boring winter evenings. Well, that theory's more plausible than saying that those two were accomplices or even lovers. I mean, it's pretty far-fetched to think that the joke was on you, that they were taking you for a ride. It's just as unlikely thinking they were behind Ed's murder and are trying to frame me for a prison break where I had absolutely nothing to gain. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. P.I., but is your investigation going around in circles? Are you gonna be on my back much longer? What do you want? Nothing? Thought.
Yesterday, when you left Sonia, you went to Ed's place. You stood in his doorway and you emptied your gun.
Interesting. But your theory won't stand up. You need proof.
Well, I've got ballistics evidence. Just need to compare this
and
with this.
What? How did bullets from my gun wind up in Ed's apartment? I don't get it.
I can even tell you it was exactly 7 p.m. I realized when I saw this.
The ABC of being a good detective. You know your job.
So, you went to Ed's apartment at exactly 7 p.m., armed with the intention of killing him. Now that's a fact. But that doesn't prove you killed him.
What? Well...
Why are you bothering me?
Could you tell me about Carlos Montoya? Did you see him here last night?
Yes, I saw him all right. For the first time I'd seen him in ages, in years. Can you believe that?
No surprise there, he was...
Yes, I know. You think I'm stupid or something? I know my tenants. He was away on business. You know, Mr. Montoya is a very respected businessman. If he's not in Tokyo, he's in Paris or New York or somewhere else. Ah, what a life he's got, that nice young man.
If you say so. So, yesterday, you saw him return from his trip?
That's right. What a surprise. He came through here late afternoon. It must have been about 6:15, maybe 6:20 p.m. Nice clothes as usual. Oh, so polite. And what a handsome man. Oh, Josie, you naughty girl, you're getting carried away.
What happened next? Did he stay in for the night?
No. About 20 minutes later, he came back out. I remember it now. I was just about to answer the phone. It was my granddaughter, Allie.
About 6:40 p.m., give or take. When Mr. Montoya left, did you notice anything unusual about his clothes or his behavior?
No, nothing unusual. He looked like he was in a rush. But you know, Mr. Montoya is a very busy man. There's nothing strange about him being in a hurry.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Not now, Mr. Jonhson. I don't want to be disturbed. I'm on the verge of cracking this case. I can smell it. This blood stain is the key to the whole puzzle.
Oh, hey, Ted. What's up? Oh, nothing. The world keeps turning. I ain't got a time. And this liquor still hurts my head. Just an ordinary day.
You really gotta bother me every 5 minutes? You know, nothing much has happened since last time.
Come on. You get your kicks for making people's lives hell? No, it's more than that with you. It's a full-time job. Your idea of heaven. If you got nothing to say, go bug somebody else.
What do you mean? It's the wife who killed him? Not Montoya? You're gonna have to explain that one.
It's simple. Ed Lexter's on everybody's hit list. Half of Metropolis wants his head on their mantelpiece. If it's not for outstanding debts or scams, it's for shady, crooked deals. He's got no choice but to disappear. If he skips town, one day or another he'll be found. But if he dies, he'll be scot-free. Apparently he took choice number 2, to die. Or rather, make Metropolis believe he's dead.
You mean he wanted to fake his own murder?
Exactly. But in order to do it, he's got to have a murderer. That's where Carlos comes in. For years, he'd been telling anyone who'd listen that once he got out of prison, he'd snuff Lexter. Carlos was the perfect fall guy.
So Teresa helped him escape just so she and Ed could set him up?
Yep, the plan was simple. Spring Carlos from jail, then keep him distracted long enough to fake the murder right in front of a surveillance camera. Ed Lexter would play the victim, and Teresa would play Carlos, the homicidal escapee. Teresa would shoot at Ed with blanks, and Ed would fall into the canal, then swim, get out 100 yards away, and then it's bye-bye Metropolis. All the so-called widow would have to do is wait a few months, then meet up with her husband in a safe place.
No way! You mean Lexter is not really dead?
Oh, of course he's dead. The evidence leads us to believe that at the last minute, Teresa decided to use real bullets. Believe me, she had her reasons. You'll know.
And now, dear listeners, here's an exclusive chance to hear what Officer Robert had to say when he was interviewed yesterday morning. You won't find a better example of the bravery and selfless attitude of our dear police department. Hello, Officer Robert, or should I call you Inspector Robert?
Hey, what'd you expect? It was a piece of cake for a born investigator like me.
Don't be so modest. You've just solved your 5th case in less than 2 weeks. People started calling you Super Robert.
The city's perps had better watch out, because Super Robert is here.
The word on the street is that the godfather of godfathers, Uncle Teddy himself, has put a price on your head. What do you think about that?
Uncle Teddy? I don't believe it.
What's up? You look like you've seen a ghost. It's only a rumor. You're not scared, are you?
Scared? You idiot. Do you have any idea who Uncle Teddy is? Every psychopathic hitman in this city is on his payroll. What can I say? He's their idol, their master, their god. I'm a dead man.
Come on, chill. All you've got to do is use those investigative skills of yours and flush him out before his henchmen put you 6 feet under. You're Super Robert, remember?
I'm not up to the job. I wasn't the one who cracked all those cases. It's that ambitious young P.I. Red Jonhson is his name. He's the one they ought to whack, not me.
What? What did you say?
Red Jonhson. Tell that to Uncle Teddy. Red Jonhson.
Yeah, I think he's got the message.
He's called Red Jonhson. R-E-D, then J-O-H-S-O-N.
That's the end of the interview. It gets funnier each time I play. And now the weather. After some light showers,
That's what they call bad publicity.
You always come in without knocking?
I've come to repay my debt.
Your debt?
I owe you for getting me off the ED murder. Even I was convinced it was me.
Owe me how?
A word of warning. Uncle Teddy is offering $150,000 to see you dead.
$150,000? That's quite a price.
That's why the city's gangsters are so loyal to him. He's the main man. Doing Uncle Teddy a favor is like hitting the jackpot.
Does he really think I'm that dangerous?
Hey, Metropolis isn't exactly overrunning with good detectives. Uncle Teddy has seen to that personally. Your mentor, Roland James, found out the hard way, didn't he? Uncle Teddy is so successful because he's faceless. A young man of your talents could bring him down. You could say he's directly tied to half the crimes in this city.
He's managed to keep a low profile so far. He must have overestimated me.
That don't change the fact he wants your head on a platter. are you gonna do, detective?
Don't they say that when Uncle Teddy signs your death warrant, you'd better get out of the country?
Thinking of taking a trip abroad?
No. I've got another idea.
This I've got to hear.
All the perps in this city imagine him to be some homicidal macho gangster like he's made out of rock or something. But nobody's ever seen him. The way I see it, he's a jerk with issues. A jerk on a power trip. He uses his immense wealth to terrorize Metropolis. He's spending that money of his to write his own legend. If I could just get my hands on him, I'd prove to everyone that this much-admired gangster is nothing more than Daddy's little boy. A mouse who thinks he's a pit bull. A boy who wants to be a gangster. Then he'll rot in some jail cell, using his last few dollars to stop other prisoners from getting too friendly in the showers. That's my solution.
Red, I've got to say I admire you. Nobody talks about Uncle Teddy the way you do. You got balls, man.
And I don't think you came all this way to tell me something I could have figured out myself. Carlos, you're not the sort of man to let $150,000 slip through his fingers.